It's 316, everyone. It's a national holiday. No, I'm not getting confused and think it's St. Patrick's Day. 316, we celebrate that Texas Rattlesnake, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Old Stone Cold is the only wrestler to have his own day. RVD has 420, but he has to share that with Cheech and Chong, Snoop Dogg, and Willie Nelson. Today is all about Stone Cold. So drink some beers, flip off your boss, and drive a Zamboni to your ex's house and beat up her new boyfriend. Steve Austin is the greatest professional wrestler of all time. In the late 90s and early 2000s, he was a hell-raising, romping, stomping, ass-kicking SOB, and we loved every second of it. At Two Views Wrestling, our forte is fantasy booking. We love to imagine wrestlers in different eras and all the dream matches we would have got. Well, over here at the Two Views Wrestling headquarters, we have a time machine, and we want to load Stone Cold in, fire it up, and take the Rattlesnake back to the golden age of 80s professional wrestling. Imagine the matches we would get. A war with Bruiser Brody, Austin rolling into Memphis and beating the King, or showing up in the AWA and hitting a stunner on Colonel De Beers. All great choices, and we have 5 dream matches for the Rattlesnake we think could have been huge. So let's take a look. Number 5, the Von Erichs. World-class championship wrestling was a strong influence on Steve Austin. As a fan, he loved the feud between the Fabulous Freebirds and the Von Erichs. Austin would even start his wrestling career in this promotion. So Stone Cold coming into the world-famous Sportatorium and scrapping with the Von Erich boys would have been great. Austin would have stomped on Kevin's bare feet, beat down David, and bloodied that pretty boy Kerry and made all the women cry. Then he would have flipped off the old man Fritz, which, speaking of Fritz, he would have been printing money with this feud. Austin was a great heel, and the Von Erichs were tremendous baby faces, and this feud would have had the fans hanging from the rafters and screaming for Austin's blood. Number 4, Terry Funk. Terry Funk kicked a lot of ass in the 80s. He kicked Sylvester Stallone's ass, Patrick Swayze's ass, Jerry Lawler's ass, and Hulk Hogan's ass. The Funker versus Stone Cold would have been a Texas-sized brawl for the ages. Funk may have been at his best in the 80s, and throwing him against the Rattlesnake would have been a match that every territory in the country wanted on the big show. This is a feud that I think would have done big business on both sides of the Pacific. The Funks were like gods in Japan. Steve Austin would have brought his brand of anarchy to the land of the rising sun and shook the place up. Number 3, Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes was the People's Champion 20 years before The Rock or DDP claimed the moniker. He really was the American dream. Whether in Florida or in the Carolinas for Crockett, the people loved Dusty. Those same people would have been filled to the brim with hatred watching the toughest SOB in wrestling put a beating on the dream. Not only would the matches and brawls have been great, but the promos would have been straight fire as well. If Dusty thought the Four Horsemen put hard times on him, he would have needed to shrink for what Stone Cold did to him. Number 2, Hulk Hogan. Stone Cold and Hulk Hogan were the biggest stars of their respective eras. They each raised wrestling to new heights. Taking Hulk Hogan from 86 or 87 and putting him against a 97 Steve Austin would have been a mega match. Hogan was a great babyface that sold well for the heels, and Austin would have had no problem laying a beating on the Hulkster. I relished the thought of Austin ragdolling Cyndi Lauper or beating down Mr. T just to get at Hogan. Like the Dusty feud, the promos for this would have ruled as well. I also like the idea of Gorilla Monsoon losing his mind at what Austin was doing and Jesse Ventura loving watching Hogan get beat down. Number 1, Roddy Piper. Now, I'm not talking about late 80s Piper here. That version of Piper was too fan friendly and fun loving. He wasn't so much rowdy as he was goofy. Things like showing his ass to Rick Rude or dressing up as Santa Claus and telling kids to believe in Santa weren't the Roddy Piper I want. I want the Piper that was busting beer bottles on his head in Portland. I want that Piper that had a brutal dog collar match with Greg Valentine. That Roddy Piper against Stone Cold Steve Austin would have given us the greatest brawls we've ever seen. There wouldn't have been any holds, but there damn sure would have been a lot of bloodshed. These are two of the greatest outlaws in wrestling, and neither would have had a problem pulling out some down and dirty tactics to get the win. In a battle between the Rowdy One and the Texas Rattlesnake, I think it would be Austin standing tall at the final bell. Let us know in the comments which 80s star you think could have been a great opponent for Stone Cold Steve Austin. As always, like and subscribe for more great wrestling content.